The previous two videos in this series showed how EU climate and energy policies have increased costs and suppressed demand, and how these increased costs have had wider social and economic consequences. According to a new analysis for the Global Warming Policy Foundation by Dr. John Constable, these consequences were predictable, and the intractable problems underpinning them should have been foreseen by policymakers.
Climate change is one of the defining threats of our times. It is indeed a generational challenge to which we must all rise. It disrupts societies and economies, undermines development, and destroys our global commons.
The main test of climate policy requires a comparison between the cost of mitigating emissions and the consequences of those emissions had they not been saved. In other words, the social cost of carbon. The social cost of carbon is a measure of the cost to human welfare of emissions developed by policy analysts and other researchers involved in environmental policy. They have calculated that the social cost of carbon is probably around $50 per tonne of CO2. Some estimates put this figure as high as $100 per tonne. Other estimates are much lower, at around $11 per tonne. So how do the costs of EU policy compare to the social cost of carbon? One recent study found that the cost of domestic and industrial emissions reduction policies in EU member states far exceeds the highest estimate of the social cost of carbon. In the case of France and Germany, the cost of domestic emissions reduction policy is around 6 times higher than the highest estimate of the social cost of carbon. In Britain, it is over twice as much. This means that Europe's green policies are doing more harm than good. But this also has been clear from the outset of the EU's drive towards green energy. All forms of renewable energy, except hydro and municipal biomass, have required subsidies that exceed the social cost of carbon per tonne of CO2 saved. This is having dramatic social consequences throughout Europe. Household energy prices in the EU are nearly double household prices in the G20 average. Industrial electricity prices are so high that an EU business could profitably relocate to other places within the G20 even if it had to buy electricity at household prices. Though EU policymakers had believed that they were creating a dynamic green economy, a green industrial revolution, and green jobs, the exact opposites have occurred. In the wake of the 2008 financial crash, Europe's solar PV manufacturers lost significant market share. And since then, manufacturers in Asia have completely dominated production. Many thousands of jobs were lost in Europe, and manufacturing continued to be dominated by China in all significant sectors of the green economy. Even in Germany, which has led the EU with the most aggressive green energy policies, has seen a contraction in the number of green jobs. Since the appointment of Ursula von der Leyen, the EU has committed itself to a European Green Deal. This package of policies includes the introduction of European climate law, aiming to transform the economy and decouple economic growth from resource use. It has reiterated that reducing energy consumption is essential. But there exists no evidence that this can be achieved at all in theory, and an abundance of evidence that it has already failed in practice. This doubling down on the green agenda suggests that the EU has learned no lessons from its recent policy failures. The EU has already made these commitments and failed. Constable argues that these and many more policy failures are moving Europe backwards to dependence on low-quality energy resources that are not capable of supplying a dynamic, complex, industrial society. To find out more, watch the other videos in this series and download the report from the GWPF website.